Hi friends, welcome to English Study Point. Today in this video lecture I am going to discuss poetry by John Dryden titled as Macflecknoe. Now let's start with the actual lines of this poetry. All human things are subject to decay, and when fate summons, monarchs must obey. So Dryden starts by invoking a universal truth about mortality and the inevitable decline of all things, including kingship. The idea of fate suggests a higher power that dictates the course of human life, emphasizing the fragility of power. This Flecknoe found, who like Augustus Young was called to empire and had governed long. So the mention of Flecknoe introduces the main character, a satirical representation of a foolish ruler, comparing him to Augustus, an established emperor. This juxtaposition suggests irony, as Flecknoe's reign is marked by incompetence rather than glory. In prose and verse was owned without dispute, though through all the realms of nonsense absolute. So Flecknoe is recognized in a mocking sense as the ruler of nonsense, highlighting his position as a poet whose works lack meaning and value. It underscores Dryden's disdain for for dull poetry and incompetent writers. This aged prince, now flourishing in peace and blessed with issue of a large increase. So the aged prince suggests that Flecknoe is at the end of his rule, contrasted with his descendants. The large increase of issue indicates a proliferation of mediocrity in his literary lineage. Worn out with business, did at length debate to settle the succession of the state. So Flecknoe is weary from his reign and now must consider who will succeed him, indicating that he is likely reflecting on the legacy he will leave behind, which could be lackluster, and pondering which of all his sons was fit to reign and wage immortal war with wit. So Flecknoe's deliberation over his son's fitness to rule reflects his desire to pass on his dubious legacy. The phrase immortal war with wit implies a battle of intelligence, which further highlights the lack thereof among his progeny. Cried this resolve, for nature pleads that he should only rule who must resembles me. So Flecknoe declares that his successor should mimic him, reinforcing the theme of mediocrity. His reliance on nature elevates his own dullness as a family trait. Then we see Shadwell alone my perfect image bears, mature in dullness from his tender years. So Shadwell is identified as Flecknoe's true successor, depicted as the embodiment of mediocrity and lack of creativity. The phrase mature in dullness sarcastically praises his stagnation. Shadwell alone of all my sons is he who stands confirmed in full stupidity. So the concluding lines further cement Shadwell's position as the ideal successor, both celebrated and ridiculed for embodying stupidity. Dryden emphasizes the depths of Shadwell's incompetence, making him a target of satire. Now, here in these lines, we see the rest to some faint meaning make pretense, but Shadwell never deviates into sense. So, Dryden introduces other poets who may attempt to convey meaning in their work, albeit faintly. In contrast, he argues that Shadwell's writings lack any sense or intellectual depth whatsoever. Some beams of wit on other souls may fall, strike through, and make a lucid interval. So Dryden acknowledges that other poets can occasionally produce glimpses of wit or moments of clarity, suggesting that creativity can still find expression in some poetry, unlike Shadwell's work. But Shadwell's genuine night admits no ray, his rising fogs prevail upon the day. So Dryden describes Shadwell's poetry as an impenetrable darkness that blocks out any light or understanding. He uses rising fogs to symbolize confusion and ignorance that overshadow clarity and brilliance in poetry. Besides, his goodly fabric fills the eye and seems designed for thoughtless majesty. So Dryden notes that Shadwell's works may appear grand, a goodly fabric, but this grandeur is deceptive, being intended for show rather than substance. It suggests superficiality that invites admiration without providing real intellectual engagement. Thoughtless as monarch oaks that shade the plain and spread in Solomon state supinely reign. So Shadwell is compared to great oaks that, though majestic and imposing, are thoughtless. The imagery of Solomon state conveys a sense of stagnant authority and inactivity in producing meaningful literary work. Haywood and Shirley were but thighs of thee, thou last great prophet of tautology. So Dryden references playwrights Haywood and Shirley, implying they are lesser examples of Shadwell's failings. He derisively labels Shadwell as a prophet of tautology, suggesting his tendency to repeat ideas without innovation or thought. Even I, a dunce of more renown than they, was sent before but to prepare thy way. So Dryden describes himself as a dunce, which is ironic given his literary success. He claims he was merely a precursor to Shadwell's works, emphasizing the perceived mediocrity of both his own and Shadwell's attempts. And coarsely clad in Norwich drugget came to teach the nations in thy greater name. So the mention of Norwich drugget, a coarse fabric, suggests the lack of refinement in both his own appearance and poetic style. Dryden mocks the idea of needing to teach the world about Shadwell's poetry, underscoring the absurdity of such a task. Now here we see my wobbling lute, the lute I will home strung. So the poet refers to his lute, symbolizing his poetic voice or talent. Whilom suggests it is a thing of the past, evoking nostalgia. When to King John of Portugal I sung. So the mention of King John of Portugal signifies a moment of importance or recognition, yet it also carries an ironic tone, implying the poet may have sung for a less significant audience. Was but the prelude to that glorious day. So, this line suggests that the past performances were merely an introduction to something greater, hinting at the importance of the upcoming event. When thou on silver Thames didst cut thy way. So, the silver Thames symbolizes the beauty and majesty of the river, and cut thy way suggests grace and skill as well as the idea of making a significant entrance or accomplishment with well timed oars before the royal barge. So, this evokes an image of a well coordinated procession, indicating the persona's leadership and fineries in front of royalty, swelled with the pride of thy celestial charge. So, this suggests a sense of grandeur and superiority. Celestial charge could refer to a noble purpose or high calling in the act of creation, and big with him, commander of an host. So, the subject is depicted as a leader with responsibility, while big with him implies that the praise or artistic production is substantial. The life was never in Epsom blankets tossed. So the reference to Epsom blankets commonly associated with beds may hint at a complacent or trivial setting for such talent, indicating that nothing as grand has ever occurred in such mundane context. Methinks I see the new Aryan sail. So Aryan refers to a legendary musician who was saved by dolphins, symbolizing poetic prowess or rebirth, suggesting that the subject embodies this figure of artistic greatness. The lute still trembling underneath thy nail. So, this visualizes the lute vibrating in response to the musician's skill. It evokes the idea that the poet's skill instills life into his art. At thy well sharpened thumb from shore to shore. So, the well sharpened thumb refers to mastery in playing the lute. The breadth of influence from shore to shore amplifies the impact of the musician's work. The treble squeaks for fear, the basses roar. So, this vividly so in this particular line, we get to see that this vividly illustrates the range of musical response, with treble embodying nervousness and bass representing power, reflecting the emotional landscape of Dryden's poetic form. Echoes from Pissing Alley, Shadwell Call. So, Pissing Alley and Shadwell refer to areas known for their reputation, underscoring the contrast between elevated artistic aspirations and the reality of low culture. and Shadwell they resound from Aston Hall. So this implies that poor poetry and mediocrity like Shadwell reverberate through even prestigious places, Aston Hall, indicating that such mediocrity is widespread. About thy boat, the little fishes throng. So the imagery suggests a gathering reflecting admiration or fascination. It symbolizes innocence and wonder before the artistry as at the morning toast that floats along. So, this line appeals to the imagery of a serene morning scene. The toast evokes a sense of celebration, while the juxtaposition with little fishes highlights simplicity and purity in contrast to the complexities of poetic arts. Now, here what we see is sometimes as prince of thy harmonious band. So, this line establishes Shadwell as a prince of poets. The term harmonious band could refer to the collective group of poets or playwrights, suggesting that he holds a leadership role among them. Thou wieldest thy papers in thy threshing hand. So, the imagery of wielding papers implies that Shadwell is both a writer and possibly clumsy or inapt in handling his craft, likening creativity to a farmer using a threshing hand, a tool meant for separating grain from chaff. Saint Andre's feet never kept more equal time. Saint Andre may refer to a character in a ballad or dance, indicating that Shadwell's writing might be rhythmically flat yet consistent, a critique of his poetic meter. Not even the feet of thy own Psyche's rhyme. So Dryden alludes to Shadwell's work, suggesting that even the rhythm in his own production lacks liveliness. Psyche could symbolize a story about love and beauty, but appears to have been executed poorly. Thou they in number as in sense excel. So this line implies that while Shadwell may produce a large quantity of work, number the quality or sense of it is still lacking, a central critique in Dryden's satire. So just so like tautology they fell. Dryden uses tautology to suggest that Shadwell's poetry is repetitive or redundant, devoid of originality or useful expression. Just could imply an ironic approval of this redundancy. That pale with envy, Singleton forswore. So Singleton, another contemporary poet, is portrayed as being envious of Shadwell. The description of him as pale suggests that he is emotionally affected by Shadwell's work, albeit negatively. The lute and sword which he in triumph bore. So the lute and sword symbolize art, the lute for music, poetry, and martial prowess. Singleton in his envy gives up these icons of creativity and masculinity, suggesting he feels unworthy compared to Shadwell's mediocre success, and vowed he never would act Valerius more. So Valerius refers to one of Singleton's works. This line signifies a personal rejection of artistic endeavors stemming from his comparison with Shadwell, affirming how deeply Dryden's critique affect his peers. Here stopped the good old sire and wept for joy. This evokes an image of an old father figure, possibly Dryden himself, who feels a sense of pride and joy in the moment, possibly reflecting on the development of young poets or his own legacy in Silent Raptures of the Hopeful Boy. So this likely refers to a young poet inspired by the scene, contrasting against the backdrop of older unsuccessful poets. The hopeful boy could symbolize the potential for future talent free from the pitfalls of mediocrity. All arguments but most his plays persuade. So Dryden suggests that the evidence against Shadwell is compelling, especially through his plays. This underscores Shadwell's failures as a playwright, reinforcing the satire that for anointed dullness he was made. So the term anointed dullness is a scathing description of Shadwell, suggesting that he was destined for mediocrity, critiquing his lack of originality and skill. Then with this video lecture ends here. Hope this video lecture will help you in your exams. Thank you.